People always ask me when my family fell apart. Some think it happened after my husband died. Some think it happened because of money. They're all wrong. My family was already breaking long before I realized it. I just didn't know I was the last person to see the cracks. If you enjoy emotional family stories, family betrayal, and unforgettable journeys where truth finally comes to light, subscribe now. We share stories like this every week. And I promise, what happened next changed my life forever. My name is Susan Miller. I'm 69 years old. For 46 years, Thomas wasn't just my husband. He was my best friend. The kind of man who still held my hand while we watched television. Who brought me coffee every morning without asking. Who kissed my forehead before leaving the house, even after 4 decades together. People like to say marriages get boring. Ours never did. It simply became quieter, comfortable, safe. Which is why I never imagined the last person who would come between us would be our own daughter. Thomas had been in the hospital for 4 days. A heart infection. The doctors were optimistic. He needed antibiotics. Some monitoring. A little patience. Go home tonight, he told me. You haven't slept in your own bed all week. I'll be right back in the morning. He smiled. I'll still be here. Those were the last words I heard from him. The next morning, I stopped at his favorite bakery. Even though the nurses wouldn't let him eat pastries, I knew he'd smile when he saw the little white box. I bought myself a coffee, straightened my blouse in the car mirror, and whispered to myself, "He's getting stronger." I believed it. The hospital lobby felt strangely quiet. Too quiet. The receptionist smiled politely. "Good morning. I'm here to see my husband, Thomas Miller." She typed for a few seconds, then stopped. Her smile disappeared. "I'm sorry." She looked at the screen again. "I'll need to call the floor." I frowned. "Why?" She didn't answer. Instead, she picked up the phone, spoke softly, then nodded. Finally, she looked back at me. "Someone will be down to speak with you." A nurse I'd never met stepped out of the elevator. She wasn't rude. She looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Miller?" "Yes." "Would you come with me?" We walked into a small consultation room. She closed the door behind us, then sat across from me. "I'm very sorry." I laughed nervously. "Did Thomas get moved?" She swallowed. "No." "Then what is this about?" She looked down at the paperwork in her hands. "It says here that you're not authorized to visit the patient." I stared at her. "I'm sorry. It says visitation restrictions were updated yesterday." I smiled. "There has to be a mistake. I'm his wife." She nodded slowly. "I know." "No. You don't understand. I've been here every single day. I'm Susan Miller. I'm his wife." The nurse's eyes filled with sympathy. "I know exactly who you are." "Then open the door." "I can't." My heart started pounding. "Who told you to stop me?" The nurse hesitated. Hospital policy clearly made her uncomfortable. Finally, she whispered, "Your daughter." For a second, I couldn't breathe. "My daughter, Jennifer." The nurse nodded. She informed staff that there were concerns about your emotional state. I blinked. "What?" She said the stress had become overwhelming and that all communication should go through her. I actually laughed. It wasn't funny. It was disbelief. "My daughter told you that?" The nurse remained silent. "I spoke to Thomas last night. He was fine. He asked me to come back this morning." The nurse looked genuinely heartbroken. "I understand. But according to the chart, I can't allow you upstairs." Everything around me suddenly felt unreal. The beige walls, the humming lights, the smell of disinfectant. It all blurred together. I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and called Jennifer. She answered on the second ring. "Hi, Mom. What did you do?" Silence. Then, "I was going to call you. What did you tell the hospital?" "I did what needed to be done." I gripped the phone tighter. "You told them I couldn't see my husband. You've been exhausted. You weren't thinking clearly. I was protecting Dad." "You were protecting him?" My voice cracked. "I'm his wife." She sighed. "Mom, please don't make this harder. The doctors agree that too much emotional stress isn't good for him." "I'll keep you updated." "You'll keep me updated?" As if I'm some distant relative? No. Worse. You've made me a stranger. She ended the call. Just like that. No apology. No explanation. No hesitation. I stared at the blank screen, wondering how the little girl who used to crawl into our bed during thunderstorms had become someone I barely recognized. The nurse quietly placed a box of tissues beside me. "I'm so sorry." I looked at her. "There has to be someone in charge." "There is. Our patient advocate. And our ethics office. They can review situations like this." Hope flickered for the first time that morning. "I want to speak with them. Right now." An hour later, I sat across from Linda Perez, the hospital's patient advocate. She listened without interrupting. I told her everything. 46 years of marriage. 4 days at the hospital. Jennifer's phone call. Being turned away. Linda folded her hands. "Mrs. Miller. Something about this doesn't make sense." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" She turned toward her computer. "There was a document added to your husband's file less than 3 weeks ago." "What document?" She looked directly at me. "I can't discuss its contents until I verify a few things." "But if what I'm seeing is correct." She paused. "Someone may have made decisions they weren't legally authorized to make." At that exact moment, someone knocked on the office door. Linda opened it. A hospital legal representative handed her a sealed envelope. She glanced at the name on the front, then looked back at me. "Mrs. Miller, I think your husband knew this day might come." She slowly slid the envelope across the table. Written in Thomas's unmistakable handwriting were 5 words that made my entire body tremble. "For Susan, if I'm not here." I couldn't stop staring at the envelope. Thomas's handwriting was unmistakable. Neat. Steady. The same handwriting that had filled every birthday card, every anniversary letter, every little note he used to leave beside my morning coffee. Now those familiar words were trembling in my hands. "For Susan, if I'm not here." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Because I knew something my heart wasn't ready to accept. This would be the last letter my husband would ever write to me. Linda gently reached across the table. "You don't have to read it alone." I nodded. But I knew I did. Thomas had written these words for me. Only me. With shaking fingers, I broke the seal, folded back the pages, and immediately recognized the first sentence. "My dearest Susan, if you're reading this, it means something has happened that I prayed never would. It also means someone has probably tried to come between us." A tear rolled onto the paper. I quickly wiped it away. Thomas always teased me for crying over letters. Now, I couldn't stop. I continued reading. "You know I've never been a suspicious man. I don't believe in assuming the worst about people, especially not our own family. But over the last 2 years, I've noticed conversations stopping whenever you walked into the room. I've watched people become strangely interested in our finances. Maybe I was wrong. I prayed I was. But I couldn't ignore the feeling that something had quietly changed." I lowered the letter. My chest hurt. Thomas hadn't written this because he was angry. He'd written it because he was worried. Not about himself. About me. For the first time since the funeral, I realized something. Thomas hadn't been afraid of dying. He'd been afraid of leaving me behind. I covered my mouth and cried. Not loud. Not dramatically. Just the kind of quiet tears that come when your heart finally understands something your mind has been refusing to believe. Linda quietly placed a box of tissues beside me. I'll give you a minute. I shook my head. No. I need to finish. I looked back at the letter. Susan, you have always believed that love can solve anything. That's one of the reasons I fell in love with you. But sometimes love makes us trust people who no longer deserve that trust. Another deep breath. Another page. If anyone has convinced you that you're confused, if anyone has told you that you're becoming forgetful, please listen to me. There is nothing wrong with your mind. My hands froze. Those words echoed inside me. Nothing wrong with your mind. Suddenly, everything Jennifer had said over the last year came rushing back. Mom, you're getting forgetful. You already asked me that. You probably just don't remember. Let me handle it. I'll take care of everything. At the time, I'd smiled. I thought she was helping. Now, I wasn't so sure. Thomas continued. Don't let grief make you doubt yourself. And don't let anyone use my absence to make you believe you're incapable of making your own decisions. I closed my eyes. The room felt painfully quiet. How had he seen all of this? How had I missed it? Linda spoke softly. Mrs. Miller. There are additional documents your husband prepared. I looked up. What kind of documents? They concern your medical authority, your financial protection, and your home. She opened a blue folder. Inside were neatly organized papers, each one professionally prepared, each one signed by Thomas, each one notarized. The first document read, Durable Power of Attorney, Primary Agent, Susan Miller. The second, Healthcare Power of Attorney. Again, my name. The third, Advance Medical Directive. Once again, everything had been left to me, exactly as Thomas wanted. I looked at Linda. Then why was I kept away from him? She answered honestly. Because someone provided information that conflicted with these documents. The hospital relied on verbal claims before reviewing the updated paperwork. We're investigating how that happened. A hospital attorney sitting quietly in the corner finally spoke. Mrs. Miller, I want to apologize. You should never have been denied access to your husband. His words should have comforted me. Instead, they broke me. Because nothing could give me back those lost hours. I returned to Thomas's letter. One final page remained. Susan, if this day has come, please don't try to carry this alone. I've asked Michael Grant to keep several documents safe until you needed them. He will know exactly what to show you. Trust him the way you've always trusted me. At the bottom, Thomas had written one last sentence. No matter what anyone tells you, you are still the strongest person I've ever known. I pressed the letter against my chest. I miss you. The words escaped before I realized I'd spoken them aloud. Linda's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, then looked at me. Mrs. Miller. It's Michael Grant. He asked if you've read the letter. I nodded. He said to tell you. She paused. That the letter was only the beginning. An hour later, the hospital finally allowed me into Thomas's room. The nurse who had turned me away quietly apologized. I'm truly sorry. I squeezed her hand. I know you were following what you believed were the correct instructions. She wiped away a tear. I wish we'd looked at the paperwork sooner. So did I. Thomas was asleep. The steady rhythm of the heart monitor filled the room. I sat beside him, slipped my hand into his, and whispered, I found your letter. I don't understand everything yet, but I promise, I'm going to protect what you spent a lifetime protecting. His fingers moved ever so slightly around mine, just enough for me to feel it, just enough to remind me he was still with me. The following morning, I drove to Attorney Michael Grant's office. His receptionist greeted me before I even reached the desk. "Mrs. Miller, Mr. Grant has been expecting you." Michael stood as I entered. His expression was kind, but serious. He motioned for me to sit. Before opening a single file, he asked one quiet question. "Mrs. Miller, after Thomas entered the hospital, did Jennifer hand you paperwork and ask you to sign it without reading it?" My stomach tightened. I stared at him, then slowly nodded. "Yes." Michael closed his eyes for a moment, almost as if he'd been hoping I would say no. When he looked back at me, his voice was barely above a whisper. I was afraid of that. He opened a folder, turned the first page toward me. At the bottom was my signature. Across the top, in bold letters, "Authorization to list residential property." My heart stopped. I couldn't take my eyes off the document. My signature sat at the bottom, neat, steady, unmistakably mine. But the words above it, I had never seen before. "Authorization to list residential property." I looked up at Michael. "I don't understand. I never signed this." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slid another document across the desk. "Do you recognize the signature?" I looked down. Every letter, every curve, every flourish. It was mine. Without question. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Yes, it's my signature." But I never saw those words. Michael nodded. "I believe you." He placed a second page beside the first. "This is the visitor log you signed at the hospital that same afternoon." I compared the two signatures. They were nearly identical, signed only minutes apart. My heart began to race. Michael folded his hands. "Mrs. Miller, after Thomas was admitted, can you tell me exactly what Jennifer asked you to sign?" I closed my eyes, trying to remember. Everything from those first few days at the hospital felt blurred together. The smell of antiseptic, doctors walking past, machines beeping, Jennifer hurrying toward me with a clipboard. "Mom," she'd said, "they need a few more hospital forms." I hadn't even looked. She flipped through several pages, pointed to the bottom. "Just sign here." I did. Then another page. And here. Then another. I trusted her. She was my daughter. Why would I question her? My eyes flew open. "Oh." The word barely escaped my lips. "Oh my God." Michael gave me a sympathetic look. "You weren't thinking about paperwork. You were thinking about your husband." A tear slid down my cheek. "I never read a single page." He nodded. "Unfortunately, people who exploit family members often choose moments exactly like that." I lowered my head. "I feel so foolish." "No." His voice was firm. "You were grieving. There's a difference." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning inside me. "Did Thomas know?" Michael let out a slow breath. He was worried. Not certain. Worried. He opened another folder. 18 months ago, Thomas came to see me. I looked up. He asked me one question. Michael glanced down at his notes. "If something happens to me, how do I make sure Susan can't be pressured into signing away everything we've built together?" My chest tightened. Thomas had been thinking about me. Even then. I explained the options. Michael continued. "A revocable living trust. Updated powers of attorney. Medical directives. And instructions that would only be released if they became necessary." He smiled sadly. Thomas didn't do those things because he expected the worst. He did them because he loved you. Michael reached for a thick blue binder. He carefully turned it toward me. Across the front were embossed gold letters. Ellis Family Living Trust. I frowned. I've never seen that. I know. Thomas wanted to explain everything himself. He simply ran out of time. Michael opened the binder. The home was transferred into this trust 16 months ago. I blinked. Our house. Yes. So. I hesitated. Can Jennifer sell it? Michael smiled gently. No. I stared at him. No. No. The listing authorization she had you sign isn't enough. It doesn't give her ownership. It doesn't give her authority. And it certainly doesn't allow anyone to buy the property. Relief washed over me so suddenly that I almost cried again. So the house is safe. It is. I leaned back in my chair. For the first time since all of this began, I could breathe. Then another thought struck me. If she couldn't sell it, why would she try? Michael answered quietly. Because she didn't know the trust existed. The room fell silent. Jennifer thought she had everything under control. She thought all she needed was my signature. She never imagined Thomas had already protected us. Michael opened another envelope. This arrived yesterday. Inside was a glossy brochure from a local real estate company. Across the front was a photograph of my home. The white porch Thomas had painted every spring. The maple tree we'd planted when Jennifer was 5. The swing he'd built with his own hands. Under the photograph were 2 words. Coming soon. My hands began to shake. She actually listed it. She tried. A memory hit me without warning. 3 weeks earlier, Jennifer had asked for our spare keys. Mom, I'll water your flowers while you're at the hospital. I had thanked her. Now I wondered how many strangers she'd walked through my living room. How many had admired the kitchen where Thomas danced with me every Christmas while dinner burned in the oven. The thought made my stomach turn. Michael quietly placed a small wooden box on the desk. Thomas left this for you. Inside were dozens of handwritten index cards. Each one carefully dated. Each beginning with the same words. If Susan ever needs reminding. My vision blurred. I picked up the first card. If Susan blames herself, tell her she loved with her whole heart. Never apologize for that. The second card. If Susan thinks she failed as a mother, tell her good parents don't control the choices their children make. They simply love them. The third. If Susan wonders whether I knew, tell her I saw enough to protect her. But I never stopped praying Jennifer would find her way back to us. I couldn't hold back my tears. Thomas hadn't been planning revenge. He'd been planning protection. Even in his fear, he'd chosen love. Michael quietly looked toward the window, giving me time to collect myself. When I finally spoke, my voice was barely audible. Did he stop loving Jennifer? Michael answered without hesitation. No. He never stopped loving her. He simply refused to leave you unprotected. Those words settled deep inside me. For the first time, I understood. This wasn't a father choosing one family member over another. It was a husband keeping the promise he'd made 46 years earlier. To stand beside me, no matter what. A sharp knock interrupted the silence. Michael's assistant stepped into the office. She looked uneasy. Mr. Grant, you asked me to let you know if anyone came. Michael nodded. Who is it? She hesitated. It's Jennifer. Every muscle in my body tightened. What does she want? The assistant swallowed. She says she's here to collect the house keys. I looked at Michael. The house keys. She nodded. She says prospective buyers are scheduled to tour the property in 30 minutes. Michael slowly stood. He picked up the trust binder. then looked at me with a calm expression. I think it's time your daughter learned something your husband made absolutely certain. What? He rested one hand on the binder. She may have your signature, but she doesn't have the authority she thought she did. He walked toward the office door. And today, everyone waiting to buy your home is about to find that out. For a moment, no one moved. I could hear my own heartbeat. Jennifer was outside, waiting, believing she was about to hand prospective buyers the keys to the home where I'd spent nearly half a century building a life with Thomas. Michael looked at me. You don't have to face her. I wiped my eyes. Yes, I do. By the time we reached the reception area, Jennifer was already pacing. She looked polished, confident. She wore a cream-colored blazer I'd bought her for a job interview years ago. Seeing it now felt strangely symbolic. I had spent my life giving to my daughter, and somehow, she had come to believe everything I gave her already belonged to her. The moment she saw me, she smiled. Mom, there you are. As if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't kept me away from my husband. As if she hadn't tried to list our home behind my back. She walked toward me. We're running late. I need the house keys. I stared at her. For what? She sighed dramatically. The realtor is meeting the buyers. You know that. I've already explained everything. Michael stepped forward. I'm afraid there won't be any showing today. Jennifer barely looked at him. There has to be. The buyers are driving in from 2 counties away. They've already been pre-approved. Michael's expression didn't change. Then I suggest they enjoy the drive. Jennifer frowned. What is that supposed to mean? Michael placed the blue trust binder on the reception desk. It means you don't have the legal authority to market or sell the Miller residence. Her face lost color. What? The property has been owned by the Ellis Family Living Trust for over a year. She laughed. Actually laughed. That's impossible. My father would have told me. Michael answered calmly. He intentionally did not. For the first time, I saw uncertainty in Jennifer's eyes. She looked at me. Mom. He's lying. I didn't answer. I simply watched her. The same way I'd watched her learn to ride a bicycle. Graduate high school. Walk down the aisle. Only now, I felt like I was looking at someone I no longer knew. Jennifer turned back to Michael. I have signed paperwork. My mother signed it. He nodded. She signed a listing authorization. Not a deed. Not a transfer. And certainly not authority to override the trust. She folded her arms. This is ridiculous. My father wanted me to help. Michael looked directly at her. I know exactly what your father wanted. The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer reached into her purse, pulled out her phone. I'm calling the realtor. She walked a few feet away. I could hear every word. There's been a misunderstanding. No. I'll handle it. No. Don't cancel yet. Her voice grew more frantic with every sentence. Finally, she lowered the phone. They're leaving. Michael nodded once. That would be wise. Jennifer turned toward me. Her confidence had vanished. Mom. I was doing this for you. I couldn't believe what I'd just heard. For me. She nodded eagerly. The house is too big. You can't take care of it. I was trying to make things easier. I looked at her for a long moment, then quietly asked, when were you planning to tell me? She didn't answer. When the listing went online. Silence. After strangers walked through my home? Still nothing. Or after you handed me papers telling me where I was supposed to live? Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't think you'd understand. Those words broke something inside me, because they sounded so familiar. I had said almost those exact words to Jennifer when she was 16. Only back then, it had been about a surprise birthday party. Not my home. Not my marriage. Not my life. You told the hospital I was confused. She looked away. I was worried. You told them I shouldn't see my husband. I thought he needed rest. You told me to sign papers without reading them. I was trying to help. Every answer was another excuse. Not once did she say, "I'm sorry." Michael quietly excused himself. "I'll make a few phone calls. The brokerage needs formal notice." He stepped into his office, leaving Jennifer and me alone. She walked closer. "Mom, I know you're upset, but Dad would have wanted us to stick together." For the first time that day, I interrupted her. "No." My voice surprised even me. "Don't tell me what your father wanted." Her mouth fell open. "He spent weeks preparing documents to protect me. He wrote me letters. He made plans. He knew something wasn't right." Her eyes widened. "He wrote letters?" "Yes. He trusted me. And after everything that's happened, I understand why." Jennifer looked genuinely shaken. "What did he say about me?" I thought about the cards. About the letter. About the man I'd loved for 46 years. "He said he never stopped loving you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. I continued. "But he was afraid someone would use his absence to hurt me." She lowered her head. For the first time, she had nothing to say. Michael returned carrying several papers. "The listing has been withdrawn. The brokerage has confirmed there will be no further activity." I let out a slow breath. One burden lifted. Many more remained. As Jennifer turned to leave, Michael stopped her. "One more thing." She looked back. "I recommend you retain your own attorney." She frowned. "What for?" Michael answered carefully. "Because what happens next won't be decided in this office." Jennifer's face turned pale. "What are you talking about?" Michael looked at me before answering. "Mrs. Miller has legal options. I'll discuss those with her privately." Jennifer stared at me. "You wouldn't." I met her eyes. For the first time in my life, I didn't answer as her mother. I answered as the woman Thomas believed I could be. "I haven't decided what I'll do. But this time, I'll be making the decision." Jennifer walked out without another word. The office became quiet again. I looked toward the window. Across the street, families were going about their ordinary lives. They had no idea mine had just changed forever. Michael gently placed another envelope on the desk. I almost forgot. I looked down. It was smaller than Thomas's letter. Across the front, in his familiar handwriting, were 6 simple words. "Open after you save our home." My hands began to tremble again. "I've never seen this before." Michael smiled softly. "Neither has anyone else." I carefully broke the seal. Inside, there was only one page. And one sentence. A sentence so unexpected. It made me sit down before my knees gave out. "Susan, if you're reading this, Jennifer has one last chance to tell you the truth before you learn what she did with our savings." I stared at the letter. The words refused to make sense. "Before you learn what she did with our savings." Our savings. I looked at Michael. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into the blue binder and removed one final envelope. "This is everything Thomas asked me to keep until the house was safe." My pulse quickened. Did Jennifer steal from us? Michael chose his words carefully. "I don't know. But Thomas believed there were transactions he couldn't explain." He opened a folder of bank statements. Colored tabs marked dozens of pages. "About a year ago, Thomas noticed small withdrawals from one of your joint investment accounts." I frowned. I never saw them. You weren't meant to. He turned the statement toward me. They were electronic transfers. $500. 800. 1,200. Never enough to draw immediate attention. But over months, they added up. $23,000. I covered my mouth. Oh. Michael slid another document across the desk. Thomas asked the bank to trace where the money was going. The account number matched one on every transfer. The name beneath it made my heart sink. Jennifer Miller Carter. I closed my eyes. No. I don't understand. Michael nodded. Neither did Thomas. He asked Jennifer about it. What did she say? She claimed you had agreed to help her through a difficult financial period. I shook my head. I never agreed to that. I know. Thomas realized that. I remembered something. Nearly a year earlier, Jennifer had called one afternoon. Mom, the bank's changing some security settings. They're going to text you a verification code. Can you read it to me? I'd never questioned it. Why would I? She said it was for paperwork she'd already discussed with her father. I gave her the code. I never thought about it again. Now, everything made sense. The tears came without warning. Not because of the money. Money could be earned again. It was the trust. The trust I'd given so freely. The trust she'd quietly used against me. Michael spoke gently. Thomas changed every account after that. He required 2 signatures. He removed online access she'd been using. He documented everything. I smiled through my tears. That's why she turned her attention to the house. He nodded. That's what Thomas believed. There was a knock at the office door. Jennifer stood outside. Her eyes were red. She looked nothing like the confident woman who had demanded the house keys an hour earlier. Michael looked at me. Would you like me to ask her to leave? I took a deep breath. No. I need to hear her. Jennifer stepped inside. She didn't sit down. She simply stood there, looking at the floor. Finally, she whispered, I know what you're reading. I waited. She swallowed hard. I took the money. The room fell silent. No excuses. No explanations. Just the truth. Why? My voice barely rose above a whisper. She wiped her eyes. Mark lost his job. We'd fallen behind on everything. The mortgage. The credit cards. The business loan. I thought. She stopped. I thought I'd put it back. When? I don't know. I just kept believing things would get better. I stared at my daughter. I would have helped you. She nodded, crying openly now. I know. So why didn't you ask? Because I was ashamed. She covered her face. And after I took the first transfer, I couldn't admit it. So I took another. And another. Then Dad found out. What did he say? Jennifer looked up. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten me. He just asked. Her voice broke. When did you stop believing you could tell us the truth? A tear slid down my cheek. That sounded exactly like Thomas. Jennifer took a shaky breath. He gave me 6 months to pay it back. I tried. I really did. But everything got worse. When he got sick, I panicked. I thought if the house sold, I could replace everything before you ever knew. The office was silent. There it was. Not greed. Not some elaborate scheme. A terrible decision. Followed by another. And another. Until the truth became too frightening to face. I looked down at Thomas's final letter. He had been right. He'd given Jennifer one last chance. She had finally taken it. Michael quietly spoke. The money can be repaid over time. The trust remains protected. What happens next? He looked at me. Is entirely your decision. Jennifer slowly walked toward me. She stopped a few feet away. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. I'm asking you to let me spend the rest of my life earning back what I destroyed. I looked into her eyes. For the first time in months. I didn't see manipulation. I saw fear, regret, and a daughter who finally understood the weight of her choices. I thought about Thomas, about his letters, about the little index cards. One in particular came back to me. Good parents don't control the choices their children make. They simply love them. He had never asked me to punish Jennifer. He had asked me to protect myself. There was a difference. I stood. Slowly. My knees still weak. I walked to my daughter. She looked as though she expected me to slap her. Instead, I hugged her. Not because everything was forgiven. It wasn't. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. I hugged her because she was still my daughter. And because forgiveness begins with truth. Not with pretending nothing happened. I stepped back. There will be consequences. She nodded. I know. You'll repay every dollar. Yes. You'll earn back trust. I will. It won't happen overnight. I understand. Several weeks later, Thomas came home. Weak. Much thinner. But alive. When I walked through our front door beside him, he looked around the living room and smiled. You kept our home. I squeezed his hand. No. We did. That evening, the three of us sat together for the first time in months. There were tears. Long silences. Honest conversations we'd avoided for far too long. Healing didn't happen in a single night. But it finally began. Sometimes people ask whether our family ever became what it used to be. The answer is no. Some things, once broken, never fit together exactly the same again. But they can become stronger in different places. Because this time, they've been rebuilt with honesty. Thomas still leaves little notes beside my coffee. Jennifer still comes over every Sunday. She never arrives empty-handed anymore. Not because she has to. Because she wants to. Because every visit is another promise kept. Another step toward becoming the daughter she almost lost the chance to be. And every now and then, I open that small wooden box. I read one of Thomas's cards. Just one. It's enough to remind me that love isn't measured by what someone leaves behind. It's measured by how carefully they protect the people they love, even when they aren't there to do it themselves. If this story touched you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to rebuild trust after a painful betrayal? Share your experience in the comments. And if you enjoy heartfelt family stories about resilience, forgiveness, and justice, don't forget to subscribe. You never know which story might remind someone that hope is still worth holding on to.